Recording started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the October 17th Division of Adult Education monthly webinar. This session is being recorded. By participating in this session, you are consenting to the recording, retention, and use of the session. No other recording of this session is allowed. So today, about half of the morning will be used by West Ed to provide more in-depth information about the pilot and study. And then I have some updates, and then the advisors will talk about the monitoring process. They got a couple questions after the kickoff and wanted to be able to address them. I will go ahead, and I saw, Carolyn, that you were on, so I will go ahead and stop sharing and allow you to share your screen and take over.
Great, thank you so much. Let me go ahead and get our slides together. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, are you able to see this?
Yes.
Yes, okay, sorry, I had.
Yeah, no problem. Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I know I was on your last call as well. Today, we just wanted to do a reminder of the ANDE study that is going to be starting in January, as well as clarify some common questions and concerns that we've heard. So since we last spoke, our team has had 15 informational sessions with different agencies and administrators across the state. And so again, today's goal is really just a recap of ANDE. We've heard several questions about what does this course look like for instructors and for students. So we'll kind of dive into that today, as well as clarifying common questions like, questions around the GED. Does ANDE help prepare students for the GED and things along those lines? I know I have 30 minutes. We did invite also one of our previous teachers to join. And so I do want to leave time for her at the end. And hopefully she can tell you all more about her experience. So today, again, just as I mentioned previously, we'll go over the course in more detail. We'll just do a quick reminder of the study and kind of what it will look like. Go over some common questions and then hear from our teacher. So as a reminder of the study, that the ANDE study is an effort between Pennsylvania and West Ed to develop and test a digital literacy and numeracy course for adult learners. We've gotten several questions about what ANDE looks like. You guys might work with teachers that have already taught a version of ANDE in the past. And we have been sharing with the people that we've spoken with that the course actually looks significantly different than it has in the past. We've been working really closely with teachers at different agencies to hear their feedback about what's useful for them, what's not, what is needed in this context. And we have been iteratively improving the course to meet your needs. So what the course currently looks like, and the biggest change that we've had in this fall, is that we now have 4 mini courses that make up the larger ANDE course. So we have A, B, C, and D, which you can see here, as well as the topics. For the study, we are only asking that the teachers teach A and then B. They will have access to C and D. They can teach it if they like, but it is not required. A and B, we estimate that each one will take about 5 weeks. So the total study for a teacher would just be 10 weeks of their time right after the launch workshop in January. And then the rest of the term, they can teach business as usual and focus on, the curriculum that they normally teach. They can have the option of doing C and D, but they don't need to for the study. So Andy, what's in Andy? One of our biggest questions has been how it relates to the GED. So this first bullet here really gets at that. Andy aligns closely with the major GED topics. It is not test prep, but we are heavily aligned with the GED. It covers essential areas such as number operations, algebra, geometry, data analysis, and proportional reasoning. So while it isn't test prep, we really do highlight the topics that students will see in the GED. The course was also designed for EFL level 4 as well as CCR level C and D. So we worked really closely to make sure that they aligned with those levels, and it's aligned with the CCRS standards. Other supports that this course offers is it has digital literacy tools. We have circle supports, which are social emotional like so SEL activities, as well as we have English language learner supports, as well as our online course platform that can be used. So what does the Andy course look like? That was by far one of our biggest questions. So each lesson, and again, there's 8 lessons per mini course, has the same structure. You can see here there's different boxes, but essentially the first box is the pre-work. The second box is the main lesson. And then the last box is the post-work, or essentially homework, that kind of sums up what the student would have gone through in that lesson. So I'm going to dive into each of these different areas. So the pre-work, what does this look like? On our course platform, we have something called Determined Knowledge. It essentially takes students through prerequisite content that they need in order to be able to engage with the main content of that lesson. It's really just like a check to make sure that the student's ready for the lesson. And if it's determined that maybe a student needs a little refresher on one of the prerequisite topics, it takes them through a really brief refresher of that topic before they move in to the new content of the day. They also have like a quick preparation activity, which is just like a launch into the new content. As well as we have some of our SEL components there as well, so like a confidence survey or different activities that talk about growth mindset, things along those lines. So once they go through the pre-work, we get to the main lesson. This is we call it the collaboration. It can be done either with a PDF. So if you're in person, you can have PDFs printed for your students in class. Or if you are HighFlex or virtual, we do have the course platform where the students can engage with this collaboration online. So it's the same content for all students, even if it's done on the platform, but this collaboration, which I have a sample to show you guys, is really focused on, it's a contextualized lesson. And so it takes them through step by step and an activity with relevant topics to their lives. Here you can kind of see what a collaboration looks like. I know it's very tiny, but I actually do have a link to sample lessons for you all that I will drop in the chat at the very end. And you guys are welcome to explore this and kind of get a sense of what the ANDE course looks like. So then at the very end, we have the post-work. So this can be done by students individually, or if you do have time, it can be done in class as well. It is done on the platform. And once it's completed, at each node, what we call these little circles here, once they're completed, they turn a color. And down at the bottom, you can see that there's a key there for how the students did with the content. And all of that is available to instructors on the back end, which I will show you all in just a second. But before I get into that, each of these lessons, what I just showed you, we anticipate taking slightly over an hour and a half. So what we ask of teachers, or what we recommend, this is not mandatory. This is just our guidance or recommendation is that there's 30 minutes of that pre-work that I showed you all, and we recommend that that's actually in class. This was a change from previous studies that we did with the ANDE course. We heard from teachers that, it's a challenge for students to engage with the content outside of class. So they recommended that it be done in class. We heard their feedback, and so this is we've changed the pre-work a bit, and we recommend that it is done in class. And then they have the 60-minute collaboration. The 15 minutes of post-work or homework can be done independently, whether that's asynchronously at home, or if you do have time in class, it can be done there as well. So the instructor view of the platform, this is smaller, but I'm happy to share this deck as well if you guys want to see it. So the teachers can access all of the activities online just like a student. If you want to go through the material beforehand, that's completely doable within the online platform. The teacher can also see all of the students' answers and submissions, and you can see their different nodes, which are those circles again, and since they're color coded, you can see also what level of mastery they had over the content. You can also see all the student confidence data, which can help you inform your teaching. So which areas were they more confident in and which ones were they less confident in. And this platform, just a quick note here, we do go into it in the January launch workshop. The teachers will have like an hour or two to get set up in the platform, to see it. Our expert goes in there with you and helps answers all of your questions so you feel prepared and ready to teach. So some feedback we got about the course. I won't go through each of the quotes here, but again, I'm happy to email this out to everyone afterwards. Again, the course is meant to be active and collaborative, as you can see from that main in-class work. It's all about collaboration. It's relevant to students, so we try to choose topics that they're really going to see or that they're going to see in GED. It's flexible as well as goal-oriented for the students. That's why we broke it down into these mini courses. Students can pick and choose the content that they need, as well as it's relationship centered. We know that that's extremely important, and so we really try to highlight that in the course. Okay, so really quickly about the study, and this is just going to be a refresher since I know several of you were in our last call, but the goal of the study is to evaluate the impact of the ANDE course and professional development on learner and instructor outcomes. You can see our research questions here. So the timeline is January 2025 through December 2025. However, we are only recruiting for spring 2025 right now. All teachers that participate will have the opportunity to join us for the fall as well. It is not required. If they sign up, it is just for the spring. Teachers that are eligible are teachers that teach a math course, any math course, whether it's a single subject math course or if they're teaching multiple subjects with math combined, all of them are welcome. And we ask that the teacher has students levels at EFL level 3 and 4 in their class. It doesn't have to be only level 3 and 4. If there are level 2s in there, that's totally fine, just as long as you have some students that are at levels 3 and 4, and that it's not an ESL specific course section. So we also got several questions about these cohorts, which I understand it was a little confusing. So teachers can opt into the study. It's not required, but we do encourage you all to join us. The teachers can, however, decide to join or not. If they decide to join, they will be placed into one of these two groups, cohort 1 or cohort 2. And I'll get into the timeline about when they would know if they're in cohort 1 or 2 in just a second. But what would happen for cohort 1 is this spring, they would attend our launch workshop in January and teach mini course A and B. They would have access to C and D again, but they don't necessarily have to teach it if they don't want to. And as well as they would complete our research activities, which would be completing some surveys, helping us collect consent forms from students and things along those lines. Again, we think this will take about 10 weeks of time. And after that, the study would be complete for them and they can go back to business as usual. For cohort 2, they would just teach business as usual. They would help us complete some research activities. They would do similar surveys as cohort 1, but they would teach their course as usual, but still receive the stipend for those research activities. Then in spring 2026, whether they do just the spring or spring and fall, they would then have access to ANDE in 2026 and can use it with their courses for that year. So if you decide to participate, this is what we would ask of teachers. The first 3 here are only for cohort 1 teachers, so only teachers that are teaching ANDE. They would do an in-person 2-day launch workshop in January. We have 2, I'll go into the details more about the launch workshop, but we have 2 different opportunities for them to engage with the content. We would ask that cohort 1 teachers attend 5 asynchronous learning activities that would be virtual later on throughout the study. Then we would ask them to teach the ANDE course, so mini course A and B. Everyone, if you're in cohort 1 or cohort 2, would be asked to distribute study materials to your students, so consent forms, administer surveys, things like that. And then everyone will be completing 4 instructor logs that we think should only take about 15 minutes of your time, and then complete 3 surveys, which will be about 20 to 30 minutes of your time. The stipends. Here you can see the stipends for cohort 1 and 2. It's broken down by activity and prorated to what each instructor completes. You can see that some of them are not applicable for cohort 2 since they won't be attending the training, essentially. The professional learning is really just for cohort 1. Okay, the benefits of the study. So one of our biggest benefits is that teachers that are in cohort 1, oh, I apologize here, it's called the treatment group, which the people that are teaching ANDE, if they complete the 2-day launch workshop and they engage with the 5 virtual asynchronous learning opportunities throughout the study, that will fulfill their professional development requirements for program year 2024 and 2025. So that's a big benefit for teachers. Also, we are providing free pre-planned lessons with corresponding comprehensive instructor guides. Everything that you need to teach the course is included. And we've heard that it really helps teachers with preparation for class and really cuts down on the amount of time that they spend planning. There's professional development that's aligned with these materials, as well as these teachers are contributing to research in the field, which is greatly needed for adult basic education. It's a section of education that has less research than other areas. And so really what our team is doing is contributing greatly to the field. It's also another opportunity to network with other teachers outside of your program. We will have that in-person launch workshop, and there will be a lot of collaboration across the sites. So what you can expect this fall. If a teacher decides to opt into the study, if they complete, or essentially they would do that by completing our consent form. If a teacher completes our consent form by Monday, which is October 21st, they will then be alerted of if they're in cohort 1 or cohort 2 by that Friday, October 25th. So we're trying to get that information to you as quickly as possible so your teachers know if they need to attend the January PD or if they'll be teaching business as usual. We also are going to be doing a second grouping. So if a teacher needs more time, or if you want to go and talk to them, or if your site would like to have an informational session with us, we are also going to be doing a grouping in November. So teachers have until November 18th to complete a consent form. If they sign after the October 21st, but before November 18th, they'll then find out their cohort on November 22nd. After teachers have signed up, they know their groupings, we will be holding informational webinars. So as soon as they know if they're in cohort 1 or cohort 2, we'll be sending out links that they can, with webinar information that they can attend. This will be for teachers and admin. If admin are, if you have teachers that are signed up, we will invite the admin to attend a workshop just to hear more about what their teachers can expect, as well as some recommendations we have for how to engage with the teachers throughout this experience. Topics that will be covered in these webinars are, again, what to expect. What can you expect in the next few months? What our asks are for the study, as well as some preparations for the launch workshop or things along those lines. We're going to have more launch workshop information as well. I know people are curious to hear more about that. PDE will also be holding the eData course setup calls, most likely in January, to help teachers and sites get these studies enrolled in the eData system in a way that where we can flag that you're a part of the study. So there will be support for that as well. The January launch workshop, again, this is only for cohort 1 teachers. And we ask that all teachers that are in cohort 1 attend. There's 2 locations and dates. So we know January is a tricky time to travel. So we are holding one in Harrisburg and one in Pittsburgh, with both within the same week, one Monday, Tuesday, January 13th and 14th, and then one January 16th and 17th. Teachers only need to attend one, and WestEd will cover all travel expenses for the event. As well as we've also had some questions, and this is a change recently. Admin do not need to attend this January launch workshop anymore. We will have those webinars for you this fall if any of your teachers are enrolled in the study, with those recommendations on how to engage with them. Okay, so we were hoping to hear from one of our previous teachers, Kim.
Can you see me? I'm here. I put my camera on, but I can't see myself. There I am.
There you are. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Carolyn. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kim. I am a teacher at Goodwill of Southwestern Pennsylvania, and I'm also our IHPDS. So I've taught ANDE twice. I've done 2 rounds of it. And just a couple of takeaways. The things I really like about it is that it is student-centered. It allows the teacher to step out of the middle, and just the students are working collaboratively, which allows you to really hear the critical thinking that's going on, or not going on for that matter. And just it really bridges the gap from having students be dependent on the teacher to like moving towards an independent student. And just you could just really hear and see the thinking that's going on, and it helps it helps with like the productive struggle of students thinking their way through a problem instead of memorizing steps. And I just really appreciate that. I appreciate that about the program. It's totally changed the way that I teach our classes, and it's kind of had that ripple effect in our program as well. Carolyn, I don't know if there's anything else you want me to share. I really like it.
Thank you so much, Kim, for your comments. We wanted to open the floor up to questions from the group as well to ask Kim or myself. I did want to address, sorry, Barry, I was just responding to you in the chat. So this is a great question. We welcome everyone to attend, even if you are open enrollment or managed enrollment. Or if you have less than 90-minute block times as well. We've seen kind of the gamut in our studies. And so while we have set that recommendation of doing the 30-minute pre-work in class as well as the 60-minute collaboration, we have seen teachers teach it in other formats as well that accommodates their schedule. We know that some of you guys meet more frequently for less periods of time. So we've had teachers, do a piece during one course and then the following course completing that collaboration series. Kim, I don't know if you've had any experience with this or would want to chime in about.
So the way that our program works, we don't work in 10-week blocks, we work in 8-week blocks. And so I have had times where like I'm working with a certain group of students for the 8 weeks, and then I had a break, but I still had ANDE material to teach, and we invited new ANDE students, people who wanted to participate into it, into the next block of 8 weeks, and it didn't interrupt. Like it was fine to do that. But I don't work with like an open enrollment in my class. I probably could have made it work, but I didn't like just introduce students into the middle of the session.
We have had some teachers that have had open enrollment, and that's where the platform actually did come in handy for their courses, where they could get the students started with the platform while they kind of engage with the other students that were moving with the materials, and then come back to that student and work with them one-on-one as they were kind of getting caught up on material. So we've seen teachers rely on the course platform in those instances. Did that answer your question, Barry?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Great.
Hi, and just for the purposes of the recording, I'm going to read the question that you all were responding to. It was, hi, Carolyn, I've used the curriculum last year. Love it. I'm interested in how ANDE is adapting to open enrollment attendance and less than 90-minute blocks for math. Thanks.
One other, we do actually, I forgot to mention earlier, also have a document about different pacings for ANDE that we've kind of anticipated knowing your schedules. And so I'm happy to share that with you as well, Barry, and with this group. It's somewhere in my Google Drive, so I'll have to dig for that link. But Amanda, I might send you a list of links afterwards to share out if you don't mind.
Sure.
Great. I see we have one other question. Does the program accrue ACT 48 credit?
That's related to some Pennsylvania requirements for people who are certified teachers. They have to do a certain number of credits in order to maintain their certification. So Michael, I assume you're asking about participation in the professional development versus ANDE, because ANDE itself is the curriculum that you provide to the students. It's the instructional materials. So you wouldn't get Act 48 credit for teaching ANDE because you're teaching. I would have to look at whether or not we're going to award Act 48 credit for it. I hadn't thought of that. When I say for it, I mean for the workshop and the asynchronous sessions. We'd have to look at what's involved in that and see if it meets Act 48 requirements.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. We definitely follow up on that. Any other questions for myself or for Kim? Great. Thank you all so much. We have a few more days until the first round of grouping. We are happy to do an informational session with you to continue answering your questions if anything comes up, whether it's with administrators or directly with teachers. We're happy to speak with them as well. You can reach us via the interest form that I linked in the chat or via our study email address. Myself or Catherine always checks that email address, so we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Carolyn. Thanks, Kim. I will start sharing my screen again. Oops. Let's see that. Okay, can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I will do some quick division updates and then we'll move into the monitoring. So first of all, I wanted to let everyone, as many of you know, Christine Hauk left the Commonwealth back in June and is now working with the city, adult education in the city of Philadelphia. Things move slowly in the Commonwealth, so we're finally getting that position posted. So the position is now open for applications. You apply online via the Commonwealth Employment website. The actual application process, the initial application process, I am not involved in at all. So you just have to go to the Commonwealth website. There is a link in the slides, and it should work in the PDF once that's posted. You do have to complete the application and an associated exam. The exam is basically an extension of an application. It's not an actual test. You're just describing your experience in a couple key areas. And one thing to realize is even though the system will allow you to upload a resume, you cannot use a resume in lieu of filling in the application. So if you just upload a resume and don't fill in the application, you're automatically out because the evaluation people do not look at the resume to determine whether or not you're eligible for the position. So those are just some things to know related to that position. Some quick updates around assessments. Best Plus 3.0. Cal made the training and materials available on October 14th. You do need to complete Best Plus 3.0 training in order to get and use the materials. Cal is making that available for free through April 14th. My understanding is that you can sign up for the training, but then someone from Cal actually has to approve your enrollment. So there may be some kind of delay in actually being able to do the training. The Prolo is working on, or the PDS is working on getting a course created within the PD portal so that you'll be able to document your completion of the Cal training by uploading a certificate or some kind of document that shows that you've completed it. And the other thing is eData is not quite ready yet for Best Plus 3.0. Once you start using it, you can start using it, but you may not be able to enter it right away. There are a couple of things that the IT people still need to add to eData to make it complete for adding Best Plus. I just got an update on TABE 1314. The TABE online 1314 is targeted for release January 20th of 2025. The paper-based versions of the TABE 1314 are targeted for release in March. So our assessment policy says that TABE 1314 is allowable this year, but it's not available yet. Just letting you all know kind of what the timeline is for when it should be available. And according to them, they will be updating their online training, but that the training itself is pretty much the same. Just a heads up, and I'll send an email about this as well. The GED testing service is holding a webinar on November 8th at 11 a.m. about demystifying the GED testing center process and understanding mobile testing. It is for anyone who might be interested in how their organization can serve adult learners in Pennsylvania by becoming a GED testing center. It's also for existing testing centers who are interested in expanding your reach through mobile testing. Their description is this session will explore the Pearson VUE GED Testing Center application and approval process in some detail. Participants will gain a better understanding of the requirements to provide GED testing to set themselves up for success. Additionally, this presentation will focus on the numerous advantages of mobile testing to meet student needs. And I will send out an email with the link as well. So we got some questions after the monitoring session at the kickoff. So the advisors are going to spend some time talking about what they do to determine who's going to be monitored and the monitoring process. I'm giving a little bit of background about why we do it. There have been a couple of times, not often, but a couple of times where when we've done an in-depth monitoring of a program, I was kind of questioned about like why we do this and do we really have the authority to do it? Why we were asking for certain documents and things like that. And this page kind of shows you all of the federal and state documents that not only give us the authority to do it, but tell us it's our requirement to monitor programs. Not going to explain all of them, but as you can see, there's a lot of federal and state requirements for us as a state around monitoring those entities that get our funding and how they use that funding. The types of monitoring that we do are desk monitoring, which include both fiscal and programmatic. That includes, we have you submit your policies annually, your program improvement team meetings, your PIPD plans. We have you do quarterly expenditure reports. And very interestingly, Mary and I were just at a meeting of state staff down in DC last week, and they were actually saying we should be asking for monthly fiscal reports. I was like, no, we're going to stick with quarterly. So, there is a reason that we ask for these things. We also conduct some in-depth monitoring reviews, both remotely and in person. And then this year, the advisors are going to start some targeted monitoring reviews, which they'll provide more information about. And these are just some of the protocols that we follow in the monitoring review. And these came directly from a slide that Octave had for state staff around what they expect us to have in monitoring reviews. So we have to have a risk-based monitoring approach, and we use a risk rubric for that. And we have kind of standardized grant monitoring activities, templates and tools. We have a very standardized process for the visit or the review. And then we have an after the fact on how we do the reports and the corrective action plans. So I will turn it over to whoever is going to take over now.
I think, Cheryl, you are going to go first, and I will talk about the last two slides.
I will. Good morning, everyone. We were asked at the annual kickoff how we determine who is going to be monitored and when. And as Amanda just said, we do use a monitoring rubric. And so I'm going to share my screen, I hope, and show you that monitoring rubric. Am I sharing my screen?
Not yet, Cheryl.
Can you see monitoring rubric?
Yes.
So let me show you what the monitoring rubric is and how to find it on the PDE website. Go to the PDE website, and when you're there, select instruction and adult basic education. And that will take you to the administrative documents opportunity right here. This is the adult basic education and family literacy education page. And there are all sorts of choices. Select administrative documents. And when you're in administrative documents, these are the three choices, and you'd select monitoring. And then because we're looking at the rubric, you would select the monitoring rubric. Let me pull that up. So this is how we determine who's up next. As you can see, there are criteria in grant contract related, situational, reporting, etc. And we determine who's up next by the number of points an agency would accumulate. These are the total number of points for each question. This is not a sliding scale. If the answer is yes, there are 2 points. If the answer is yes, there are 4 points, etc. And some of these, as you can see, are grant contract related, and you don't really have a lot of control over that. I guess you don't have to apply for multiple grants, but if you do, that's a greater risk in what we think is if you just have one. If you have a large contract over $1 million, that's a greater risk. If you have a very small contract, less than $250,000, that's a greater risk. Obviously, people with a large amount of money have a large staff, and the people who are not getting as much money have a smaller staff and everybody's doing everything. So those are just things we say, wow, how do they do all that? Most of these things are situations that you can control. It's meaning that it's your decision to do. Not everything. For example, if you've not been monitored in the last 5 years, you did not have control over that. This is available on the website, as I said, so you can take a look and see what we are actually considering. We do review annually and make the scoring an annual project. And we do look at these criteria to see, are they still relevant? Are they still important? And can make some changes there. We advisors then go through and score, and we present our results to Amanda, who will make the final decision. And the total number of points is 132. So we just decide who's going to be up next by who gets 132 points. And the person after that would score a little bit lower and so forth. We try to do, or rather I should say our duties say that we will do between 10 and 15 monitorings a year. We have been short-staffed for a bit, so we are planning on 9 for this year, but we'll be back up in full force, we hope soon. I think that concludes what I needed to talk about, so let me stop sharing. And Mary?
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, I am going to discuss preparation for monitoring visits. And I will start with the monitoring tool. And all of you may be familiar with the famous monitoring tool. It has been a part of our most recent kickoff activities. Again, it is available on the PDE website, and it is used by the division to ensure agencies are compliant in the various areas of agency programming and grant obligations as required both at the federal and state level. Each section provides the various areas of compliance and identifies what type of evidence and documentation are required. The prompts on the tool will ask who, what, and how the agency is compliant in the stated areas. For agencies who are scheduled for monitoring visits, the monitoring tool is provided along with access to the division's SharePoint site to upload required documentation, as well as the monitoring visit agenda that outlines the days and times of interviews and chats with program staff, volunteer classroom aides and tutors, and students. And going back to the SharePoint where the required documentation is uploaded, the documentation folders are created in SharePoint specifically for the agencies who are being monitored. And this is where you will upload evidence for the advisors to review. Only division staff and agency staff, usually it's primarily the program administrator, but the program administrator can also request access to the folder. We are the only ones that have access to these folders. And once the documentation has been uploaded, we do provide a due date that we require the documentation to be uploaded. Advisors export the documentation to our internal drive to access for our review. For the agenda, the advisors and the program administrators will discuss days and times that will work best for the scheduled interviews and chats. For remote visits, the program administrator will provide links for specific interviews, and there are times where the advisor will provide a Teams meeting link specifically for the administrator interview, as well as presentations of findings. And just to talk a little bit about the presentation of findings, this is where the monitoring team, which includes the advisors as well as Amanda, discusses with the program admin and other leadership staff at the agencies of noteworthy practices where the agency is doing well in certain areas, findings where the agencies may have been out of compliance in certain areas, and some recommendations where you're not required to address, but some things that may be helpful to make your programming more streamlined. For in-person visits, the administrator will ensure there is adequate space to host the interviews and chats. The advisor will discuss with the program administrator while preparing for the monitoring visits, the types of interviews and chats that are required. And the reason for these interviews and chats, this helps us triangulate information that we see while we are reviewing documentation and compare it to the live discussions that we have with staff and students. Also in preparation, the advisor does meet with the program administrator at least twice before the monitoring visit to address any outstanding questions that may be had. The administrators are welcome to schedule some quick chats to make sure that they fully understand what is expected for the monitoring visits. Next slide, please. And beginning spring of 2025, we will be facilitating some targeted monitoring visits. So as Amanda explained earlier in the slides, this will not be a full monitoring visit. It will pay close attention to specific areas of concerns that advisors may have of an agency. So some examples may include the advisor may be concerned about an agency's financial management system or some processes involving their data collection or proctoring assessments. And we determine those areas based on, again, we do look at the monitoring rubric again. We conduct our desk monitoring, which includes reviewing the access template, so the data related items that are recorded in the access template, as well as grant submissions, QERs, and FERs. So if there are or there have been some issues or concerns related to the things that we consistently review as part of our desk monitoring, we may just focus on those areas of concern. And with these visits, documentation will still be required. And again, it will not be a full monitoring visit, so it will not last an entire week. It may last over a course of a couple of days, but it will include the same measure of planning and preparation. We may still schedule some interviews, but all staff may not be required for these interviews. And again, we will begin the targeted monitoring visits in spring of 2025. And that is it for me. Are there any questions from the field? I don't see anything in the chat, Amanda. So I will turn it over back to you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to let everyone know that the November webinar will be led by Destiny and Matt from the Technology Project, and they are going to be doing a tour of the Pennsylvania Adult Education Resources website, as well as a tour of the Workforce Staff Training website. So there will be, a focus on resources. Both Mary and I are away on that particular day. So we're asking them, right? We're asking the Technology Project to share resources that are available. And I did want to just quickly bring up our website. So Cheryl showed you this on a document, but here's the live website. So here's the adult. Again, if we go to the Department of Education, she said you go to Instruction, Adult Basic Education, Administrative Documents, Monitoring. You can see we have both the monitoring rubric and the monitoring tool. So you don't have to wait until you're being monitored to see the tool, to see what kind of questions are asked. I know that there are some programs out there who kind of review the monitoring tool annually and use it as part of their program improvement process. So these resources are available to you to see how you are doing now before you get monitored. So thank you all very much. I hope you have a very good rest of your October. Since I will not be on the November webinar, I hope you all have a very happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you in December. Bye-bye.